to you wherever it is you're listening to me from. Thank you for joining us today. It's Citizen FM 93.7, day 6 of August 2025. My goodness, it's been 6 days already into the month. I hope that your dreams are panning out just right. I hope that your expectations are being met. I hope that you're praying hard and doing even harder. Welcome one, welcome all. Let's see what the news has for us today. Between now and 8 o'clock, we'll be looking through news across Africa. What's trending? We got some reports from Mali, as well as news from countries like Ethiopia. Why I had to say that the way I said it was because it's some U.S. policy affecting Ethiopia. And you also have reports from Uganda. What else do we have? Morocco is also in the news, and would also take a report from Sudan. So you'd want to see what is happening across Africa. And then at 8 o'clock, we'll switch things up. Let's see what's happening in Nigeria. There's a warning again from NIMET about the flood situation. 19 states have been warned. You want to know what states? Stay with me when it's time, or look at the states mentioned. Alright, so for now, let's see what is going on in Africa. Let's begin with reports from Sudan, where the Sudanese government has accused the United Arab Emirates of sending Colombian mercenaries to fight alongside RSF. This is not the first time that we're having this kind of report, if you follow us on news across Africa. The Foreign Ministry of Sudan has said in a statement that was released earlier in the week, Monday particularly, it said that the Sudanese government has irrefutable evidence confirming mercenaries from Colombia and some neighboring African countries that were sponsored and financed by Emirati authorities. The statement failed to provide evidence or identify the neighboring countries, but the one that they were very, very, sure or very vocal, that's the word. The one that we're very vocal about is the involvement of the United Arab Emirates. Part of the statement reads, it says, this unprecedented phenomenon poses a serious threat to peace and security in the region and across the continent. In an email statement to AFP, the UAE's Foreign Affairs Ministry responded, and they said the government categorically rejects the allegation and they deny involvement in the war by omission or commission. They said they have no hand in the armed groups or whatever they do in Sudan. The UAE also emphasized that these claims are merely attempts to derail the peace process and to evade the moral, the legal, and the humanitarian obligations to end the conflict and what is on the way to pave the way for the transitional process. In fact, the statement reads, it says, the UAE emphasizes that these claims are attempts to derail the peace processes and to evade the moral, legal, and humanitarian obligations to end the conflict and pave the way for a transitional process that reflects the aspirations of the Sudanese people for security, stability, and development. The third country mentioned, Colombia, please, they said the mercenaries are coming from there. There hasn't been any response from Colombia yet. But we know for sure that Sudan has long accused the UAE of being involved in the war situation by supplying the RSF with weapons. And more than once, UAE has denied that claim. If you remember, in November last year, an Amnesty International report said the Sudanese military had captured armored vehicles that were manufactured by the United Arab Emirates, and they were equipped with French defense system. Well, a spokesperson for the Emirati government at the time said that the UAE was the target of a coordinated disinformation campaign that was aimed at undermining the foreign policy, regional role, and humanitarian efforts of the UAE. That was in November. And now we're having this repeat again of another accusation in the same line of sponsoring the war in Sudan. And they are once again denying the claim. Anyway, Sudan's army and the RSF have both been accused of committing atrocities like ethnic cleansing, extrajudicial killings, and even sexual violence against civilians, including children. Remember how I was talking about some policy of the United States affecting some African countries? Yeah. So recent development has it that the United States is set to revive the $15,000 visa bond program for travelers from high-risk countries. And these high-risk countries are mostly in Africa. Yeah. So the news is that the U.S. Department is preparing to roll out a visa bond program that will require travelers from certain countries to pay up to $15,000 before they enter the U.S. on tourist visa or even business visa. Yeah. According to a draft rule, it's a 12-month pilot program and it would apply to nationals from countries where overstay rates exceed 10%. The bonds are meant to ensure travelers leave the U.S. on time or they forfeit their $15,000. Visitors would have their monies refunded upon departure. Once they leave within the time that they were supposed to leave, the monies will be returned to them. Or if they naturalize, or if they die in the U.S. So the monies will be, given back to their families. So of course the families would need to prove beyond reasonable doubt that this person actually died, and that's why they're not able to leave the U.S. within the time that they were supposed to leave the U.S. Anyway, the official list of affected countries will be published at least 15 days before the program goes into effect and may be updated with similar notice. But federal data cited such countries as Chad, Eritrea, Haiti, Myanmar, Yemen, Burundi, Djibouti, Togo. They have really high overstay rates and they may just be facing this 15,000 visa bond. Well, a notice has been set to be published. It states that the program will help the State Department evaluate the feasibility of using bonds as an enforcement tool. In coordination with the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of the Treasury, they're going to be working together to see how successful this move is going to be. More countries on that list, we're seeing Malawi and Zambia. I didn't mention Malawi and Zambia earlier. Malawi and Zambia are on the list of countries that would face a $15,000 US bond. Yep. Anyway, fingers crossed on that. Let's see how the country goes. It said the majority of countries enrolled in the program are in the Middle East, some of them in Asia. Pardon me. I'll take that part of the story again. The bond will not apply to citizens of countries enrolled in the visa waiver program, which enables travelers for business or tourism days. And the people that will not be affected are mostly from Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and of course North Africa. It's Citizen FM 93.7. We're taking news across Africa. Just one more story, and then we will take a break. When we come back, we'll take more stories across Africa before we call it a wrap. Morocco now. The Moroccan government is set to deliver a third humanitarian aid shipment to Gaza under the King's directive. It was a really sad sight. If you've been seeing footage of, aid entering into Gaza and how people are falling over themselves just to get whatever measure of food that they can get. It's been really sad. Well, medical supplies and food reach besieged enclave as international relief efforts intensify. The Kingdom of Morocco has joined the list of countries that are taking aid into Gaza. They've successfully delivered the third humanitarian aid convoy to Gaza under the directive of the king, chairman of the Al-Quds Committee, His Majesty King Mohammed VI. The shipment crossed through the Kerem Shalom border crossing, and it includes essential medical supplies, life-saving medications, and food staples, and they were all destined for civilians enduring Gaza's humanitarian emergency during this time. When we return from the break, more stories coming your way from across Africa. It's Citizen FM 93.7 stations.
Oya oh my people, make una come gather here. Which kind tori una wan hear on top radio? Wetin dey catch fire on top social media? Bring am on top Make We Talk Am for Citizen 93.7 FM Abuja every Monday go reach Thursday, and the time na 5:10 wey be 10 minutes after 5. Make we talk am as e dey be.
Did you miss out on the news during the week? Not to worry. Retrospect is here to make up for the misinformation. Retrospect is a complete package of all the major news headlines that made the airwaves from Sunday to Saturday. Join me, Esther Musu, on the program Retrospect on Citizen 93.7 FM Abuja every Sunday at 6 p.m. Retrospect. We keep you informed.
This is our journey. We have had our finest moments and our darkest hours. Yet we pull ourselves back from the brink every time. We are a resilient people. We are Nigeria. And when we talk, we share our views on Talk Radio 93.7 Citizen FM. Our people united will never be defeated. This is our journey. We've had our finest moments and our darkest hours. Yet we pull ourselves back from the brink every time. We are a resilient people. We are Nigeria. And when we talk, we share our views on Talk Radio 93.7 Citizen FM. Our people united will never be defeated.
Citizen FM 93.7 news across Africa it is, and we're heading now to Ethiopia, where 5 people have been sentenced to death for human trafficking, marking the first time that such a punishment has been issued for the crime of human trafficking in the country. The group of the 5 were convicted in connection with operations along the dangerous Eastern Route, a path that is used by thousands of migrants traveling from the region, that's the Horn of Africa, through the Red Sea and Yemen to the Gulf states in search of work. And the decision of sentencing them to death by for human trafficking follows a recent maritime tragedy where dozens of Ethiopian migrants drowned off the coast of Yemen, and that underscores the deadly risk that many people face at the hands of trafficking network. Ethiopia's justice authorities described the ruling as a turning point in the fight against human trafficking. Specialized task forces have been established within law enforcement and judicial bodies to strengthen investigations and to protect the victims. Now, although capital punishment remains legal in Ethiopia, the enforcement hasn't been seen, and the last known execution occurred more than a decade ago. Now, we're going to see if the sentence in this one is going to be executed at the end of the day. We got updates from Mali, where the army in Mali said that it has seized 20 inflatable vehicles that were intended for use by armed groups operating in the country of Mali. And the country's military released footage showing the inflatable cars. Some actually resemble young police in a single video. A Malian state television reported that armed groups operating in the country planned to use them as decoys to trick drones into wasting expensive missiles by firing at them. Leader Liamouri, who is a Sahel expert at the Moroccan think tank, said the inflatable vehicles are a good alternative for armed groups. They cost about $1,300, and compared to the cost of a real vehicle or even the human loss or the damage that the drones could cause, it is relatively cheap for them to use. And he said using the fake cars as decoys is one way that these armed groups could slow down the use of drones against them in both Mali and Burkina Faso. So the military said that due to the ongoing investigation, it would not disclose the date that the shipment was seized or the location where they were seized. But the effort or the idea of this particular shipment has been thwarted. And the last story we're taking today is from Uganda, where reports have it that the country is on the verge of hosting 2 million refugees as escalating crises in Sudan, South Sudan, and DRC are driving more and more people to cross the border daily in search of safety and life-saving aid. More refugees are seeking safety in Uganda because it is considered the largest refugee hosting country. And funding is cut though, and that hampers humanitarian support in what is considered the worst funding crisis in decades. One of the people who newly arrived, considered a refugee who newly arrived in Uganda, said, "We used to live in Khartoum, but we moved to Darfur because of the war. I'm with my daughters. My husband passed away. We've been here for 3 months. We have nothing, no money. The children are not in school, and they started getting sick. The situation here is really difficult." That's what Hamida Ibrahim Amin said. But she said she's grateful that they at least have somewhere to stay that is at peace, and they're not looking over their shoulder every now and again, wondering when it's going to be their death day. Anyway, the report has it that food and medicine have drastically reduced, and malnutrition is soaring really high, especially among children, and resources continue to be stretched. Refugees are being forced to make life-altering choices to survive, including, of course, dropping out of school, just like the lady who spoke earlier. Reports of gender-based violence are also on the rise, as well as an increasing risk of suicide among refugee youth. But the brighter side of the picture is that they are at least safe. At least they are not as Hamida rather said earlier, they're not looking over their shoulder, wondering when their death day would be because of the war situation in their home country in Sudan. As I mentioned earlier, it's not just from Sudan that they're coming into Uganda, they're also coming in from South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And that's about it today on News Across Africa. Stay with us. We'll be taking headline across Nigeria just in a bit.